a charged particle having drift velocity of 7.5 into 10 power minus 4 meter per second in an electric field of 3 into 10 power minus 10 volt per meter. They are asking us to find the mobility. Immediately, the basic thing, mobility is nothing but the drift velocity per unit electric field. Mobility is nothing but the drift velocity per unit electric field, where mu is equal to 7.5 into 10 power minus 4 divided by, what's the electric field in here? 3 into 10 power minus 10. 3 into 10 power minus 10. So now let me cancel the whole thing. What will I get? 2.5. So 2.5 into 10 power 6 is what we get, and the unit is already given to you in the question. It is meter square volt inverse second inverse. So this is the expression for the mobility that we are searching for. It's a straightforward question. First I wrote the formula, and both the quantities involved are directly given to us in the question, so I'll just plug them in and I will do the calculation, right? Option B is your answer for this. Okay, now we move to the next one. You see, this is a theoretical question which is going to be tricky as well as easy. A battery is connected to a conductor of non-uniform cross-section area. The quantities are quantity which remains constant. Okay, so they are asking us to find which one is going to remain constant. So how will we do this? Listen very carefully. A battery when connected to non-uniform cross-section area, listen. Let me take something like this. Okay, now I is equal to N into E into A into Vd. Okay, I is equal to N into A into Vd. This is the value of the current. Okay, now what happens is, when you connect two conductors of non-uniform cross-section area, which means assume that the conductors are like this. Most of the people will think that this is the diagram, but no. You see, if this is going to be the diagram, what we have to do is, what is the current flowing through this? I have to individually calculate that. Okay, but what they are expecting us in this question is, there are two conductors that are put together like this. Okay, there are two conductors that are put together like this. Then what happens? Okay, let me say the current flowing through this is I1 and the current flowing through this is I2. Okay, this is I1 and that is I2, and according to the options given to us, we have to answer this. First one, we are searching for the constant quantity. The electric field, they say, is going to remain constant. There is no way that the electric field is going to remain the same. Okay, since the area is going to change, definitely the electric field, if it is an uniform electric field, the number of lines that are going to link with the other conductor is going to be more than the first one. That is for sure. B, the drift speed and the electric field, they say both remains the same. Both drift speed and electric field are going to remain the same. At the very beginning, I say that the electric field is not going to remain the same. So definitely your option B is wrong. But what about the drift velocity? You see, drift velocity, keeping the drift velocity on the other side, you can take these two quantities to the left and you very well see that your drift velocity is inversely proportional to area. So your drift velocity depends on the area. So your option B is also wrong. Now coming to the third option, the electric field and the current. Already the electric field is not uniform, I have talked about that. So option C is wrong too. We are only left with one option. Okay, since we have eliminated all the three, I can just directly go for this. Okay, I can directly go for this. So remember, when any two conductors of different cross section area are put together and it is connected to the same battery, then the current that is going to flow through both the conductors are going to remain the same. This is a very important phenomenon about the current. Okay, you cannot say the electric field is same, because if electric field is a different thing. Okay, electric field that is going to get linked with this small conductor is different, and the electric field that is going to get linked with the bigger conductor is also different. Okay, now 10th one, yeah, the electric bulb, just like the bulb which we use in our homes, marked as 50 watt and 200 volt, is connected across a 100 volt supply. The present power of the bulb is. So you are supposed to find the present power of the bulb. Okay, so first let me directly write the formula. P is equal to V square by R. This is the formula for the power. Okay. So now what I am going to do is, in the first case, if it is going to be 50 watt bulb and if it is connected to 200 volt, listen, I am going to find the resistance of it. Capital R is equal to 200 into 200 divided by 50. This is the resistance of it. Now I am going to do the same thing for the 100 volt, because 500 watt, that will not change. Okay, the wattage of the bulb will not change. If you connect it across the other things, you can connect it across different voltages. In that case, the resistance could also remain the same. Okay, now listen, the power dissipation will change. Every time if you connect a particular bulb of a particular watt to a different voltages, the power dissipation will change. Now that is what I am trying to find with the new voltage supply. Again I will use the same one. You see, P is equal to V square. This time I am going to put 100 into 100 by, what is the resistance of the bulb? Of course, the resistance of the bulb is going to remain the same. Why? Because they are physically the same. The tungsten and all the components inside the bulb is going to remain the same. So the resistance of the bulb is not going to change, as because you are going to connect it to a different voltage. So I will use the resistance that is found in the previous case in here. So it becomes 200 into 200 into 50. Okay, so 200 into 200 into 50. So what happens, by the way? 2 into 2 it is. Okay, 50 by 4. The power dissipation P prime, I will just call it P prime. P prime is equal to 50 divided by 4. Okay, what is 50 divided by 4? So it will be 1 times, 2 times, balance will be another 2, which will be 5. Yes. So P prime is nothing but 12.5 watt is the new power dissipation for the same bulb when it is connected to the 100 volt. See, again same thing, write the formula first. For the given data, I found the resistance and I realized that the resistance of the bulb is not going to change because of the connected voltage, and I will use the same resistance into this and I will find my new power supply. So this is a very important and an easy questions to deal with. So now we move to the next one. You see, it's a Wheatstone's bridge. In a given figure, the bridge is balanced. Okay, good. The current flowing through 2 ohm resistance is. the current flowing through 2 ohm resistances is what you have to find. Since the bridge is balanced, I understand that no current is going to flow through this. I have a liberty to remove the whole segment at the middle. I will redraw the entire circuit again. See. So this is the way I will reconstruct the entire circuit, and this is 4 ohm and this is 2 ohm, this is 10 ohms and this is 5 ohms. 2 amperes of current is what is flowing into the circuit, and you have to find the current that is flowing through 2 ohm resistor. So now you see these two resistance are in series and these two resistance are in series. So the current flowing through 2 ohm resistance will be equal to the current flowing through the 4 ohm resistance. So all you have to find is the ratio of the current. That's all. If you do that, you are completely done. And remember one thing, the potential drop on this and the potential drop on the 2 resistors on 2 branches are the same. I repeat, you see the potential drop on the upper branch and the lower branch is going to be the same because both are connected in parallel. So see how I am going to construct. I1 is equal to, how to represent that? V by R1. I1 is equal to V by R1. So 1 represents the first branch on the top. I2 is equal to V by R2. This represents the second branch at the bottom. Okay, what is the equivalent resistance on the first branch at the top? It is 6 ohms. So it is V by 6 ohms. One at the bottom is 15 ohms. Okay. Now what we are supposed to find is I1, the current that is flowing inside. This is I1. Okay, so to find I1 you need V. How to find V? Again, V is equal to I into R. We already know the I which is going to flow inside is 2 amperes, and the equivalent resistance is what we have to find first. So 1 by R equivalent is equal to 1 by 6 plus 1 by 15, which is equal to, what is the LCM? LCM should be 30, right? So 30 means it is 5 plus 2, 7 by 30 it is, and R equivalent is equal to 30 by 7. I will use this R equivalent into that. 30 by 7. Now all we have to do is we have to plug the whole thing into this. You have to plug the whole thing into this to get your I1, where I1 is equal to 1 by 6 into 2 into 30 by 7 it is. 2 into 30 by 7 it is. So if I just cancel this, I will get 5 again. 5 into 2 is 10. So I1 is equal to 10 by 7 amperes. I1 is equal to 10 by 7 amperes. That is our answer. That will be our answer. See, again, this is not a straightforward question, but you have to understand few basic phenomena to deal with this. We had 2 branches of circuit, and I have individually probed the current values, and then using the entire equivalent resistance of a circuit, I found my V first, and then using that V back into the current equation, I found the value of the current that is required. So this is how the things really work in this particular question. It's very easy. So now we slowly move into the next question, which is a Wheatstone's bridge question. Okay. Again it is a Wheatstone's bridge. You see, we have P, Q, R and S. Okay, so the resistance with which S is to be shunted in order that the bridge may be balanced. You already know how the Wheatstone's bridge work, right? And you are also aware of how the bridging condition is written. So I'll just draw a diagram just to show in case if you people are not aware of that. So this is a typical Wheatstone's bridge. Here we will have a galvanometer. If the bridge is balanced, the galvanometer is going to show a zero deflection. So now this is P and this is Q, this is R and this is S. Okay, if I do this, P by Q is equal to R by S. If I do P by Q is equal to R by S, and if either side of this equation is satisfied, then I can say that my bridge is balanced. But in the question itself, they say that the bridge is going to get balanced, which means you have to put some resistance to your S. How should you put? You have to connect it in parallel like this. You have to connect some resistance in parallel with S. How did I understand that I am supposed to connect it in parallel? Because they are using a word called shunted. Shunting means you are connecting a resistance in parallel like this. So the question is, what type of resistance are you supposed to connect in parallel so that you get the equal value on both the side of this equation? Okay, so now I am not going to do much. I am just going to go inside and do the problem. Okay, what is P? P is 2 ohms. And what is Q? It is 2 again. What is R? R is 2 again. And here is the S. So S is shunted with another resistance. I will just call it smaller. The shunting resistance smaller. So since these two resistors are connected in parallel, the whole resistance in this place is written as S into R by S plus R. S into R by S plus R. So 1 is equal to 2 by S into R by S plus R it is. I will just cross multiply this. So R by S plus R equal to 2. Then we already know what our S is. It is 3. So 3 into R by 3 plus R is equal to 2. And then 3R is equal to 6 plus 2R. So now I will take this 2R to the other side. It becomes small r is equal to 6 ohms. So you are supposed to shunt your S with 6 ohm resistance for this condition to be satisfied. So this is the condition for your Wheatstone's bridge to balance. See, again it's a very simple question. All you have to do is you have to draw a diagram and you have to understand which are the places that you are going to plug in the resistance and how you are going to shunt them in. Easy as it is. Okay, so now we move to the next question. It's a straightforward one. You don't have to do much with this. In a moving coil galvanometer, the deflection phi on the scale by a pointer attached to the spring. So what is the deflection made by it is the question. Okay, so you see k theta is equal to NBIA is the formula, because k theta is the torque that is produced by a spring that is attached to the back, and this is the expression for the torque experienced by a circular coil. Okay, I am going to put both together. Okay, because when the current flows through the coil, it experiences a torque and it deflects. The spring that is attached to the back of the coil will provide the necessary restoring torque to bring it back to the original position. So K theta is equal to NBIA. So here they are asking us to find the deflection on the scale. So theta is the deflection on the scale, which is equal to NBIA by K it is. NBIA by K it is. So option C is our answer. It's a direct formula question. If you are aware of this formula directly, you don't have to do any of the calculations like this. Instead, you can just directly select the answer from the option. So these are the few basic techniques that you have to follow for each and every MCQ that you are going to come across. Okay, the technique is as basic as it is. Choose a formula that you are going to operate with, then extract the data from the question and plug them in their according places, and you will get the answer. Moving to the 51st question, which is a complicated resistance question. Here, one thing is to our advantage. First, whenever you come across a complicated resistance, see whether you have a resistance that are connected in series. And if I just take a look at this, I can see there are no resistance that are connected in series. So you cannot solve this using a traditional method. You have to use a different method. Okay, now I am going to show you a trick to do this. You see, first always draw a horizontal line between the points where you connect the battery. Between the points where you connect the battery. Then you draw a vertical line perpendicular to it. Okay, and you draw a vertical line that is perpendicular to it. And then you please stand back and watch. If you find that your circuit is symmetrical, then you can apply the trick that I am going to teach you. If you find that your circuit is symmetrical, then you have a liberty to release this point. You have a liberty to release this junction. Okay, because whichever junction that is falling on this vertical line is going to have zero potential difference. So no current is going to flow through that. So I will release this junction. Now see, now the entire situation turns like this. This is the resistance. From here another resistance comes in. Here there are two resistors that are put together. 1, 2, 3. That is 1, 2, 3 in here, and another resistance comes in here, which is connected to the two other resistance in here, like this. So all are 1 ohm resistance. 1 ohm, 1 ohm, 1, 1, 1, 1 and 1. See, now we are going to find the effective resistance between A and B. So this is 1 plus 1, 2. Now 1 and 2 are in parallel. So what happens? 1 by R is equal to 1 and 1 is equal to 3 by 2. So R is equal to 2 by 3 it is. Okay, it is 2 by 3. So the whole effective resistance of this is 2 by 3. So 1, 2 by 3 and 1 are in series. So I will just put 2 in here. R in here is equal to 8 by 3. So this part of the circuit is, the upper part of the circuit is completely reduced as 8 by 3. So now 8 by 3 and 2 ohm are in parallel. So 1 by R equivalent is equal to 1 by 2 plus 3 by 8 it is. 3 by 8 it is. So now 1 by R equivalent is equal to 8 is the LCM and 4 plus 3 in the numerator. So if I rewrite this, R equivalent is equal to 8 by 7 it is. R equivalent is equal to 8 by 7 it is. So this proves that option D is our answer. Option D should be our answer, which is easy and straightforward. Here the only thing that you have to remember is, you have to apply this trick to completely reduce your circuit just like I have did in here, and then it's a traditional way of reducing. Series, you go for the resistance formula and you reduce the parallels first, and then you reduce the series, and then you treat the upper part of the circuit differently and the lower part of the circuit differently, and then you put them together, right? The first question goes like this: the resistance of the wire is capital R ohms. If it is melted and stretched to n times its original length, its new resistance will be. So here it is something like a dual data problem. So what I am going to do here is I am going to set two equations and I am going to solve it. So R is the resistance of the wire before melting down. Capital R is equal to rho into L1 by A1. So capital R is equal to rho into L by A is how you represent your resistance, and this is the initial resistance R. Then R prime is the resistance after being stretched, where rho is equal to L2 by A2 it is. Rho times L2 by A2 it is, and we know that the volume is going to remain conserved throughout. V1 is equal to V2, where L1 A1 is equal to L2 A2, and L1 by L2 is equal to A2 by A1 it is. So this is the relationship between the length and the area. So now what I am going to do is I am just going to compare both and I am going to cancel them off. So I will just divide it. So R by R prime is equal to, rho and rho will go down, where L1 by L2 into A2 by A1 it will be. So I am going to resubstitute this. So see, R by R prime is equal to I am going to resubstitute my area, so it becomes L1 by L2 the whole squared. So which implies that it has been said that it is going to get stretched by n times. So L2 is equal to n times L1 is what they are telling me. So I will be using that same relationship into this. So L1 by n times L1 it is, times whole squared, L1 and L2 will go down. So R prime is equal to n times, n squared times R. So which means that your resistance is going to increase by n squared times when your length increases. Of course, it's very obvious that even from this we get to know that your resistance is directly proportional to length, and if your length increases, and of course your resistance will also increase accordingly. So the option B has a small typo error, which is our correct option. So I am going to change it to n squared R. So your option B goes as n squared R. That will be our answer. So all you have to do is, again, since it has two data with it, all you have to do is you have to frame two equations with that, and then you have to compare the equations to get the answer. That's all it is. So the first one, it is rho into L1, the second one is rho into L2 by A2, then rho and rho goes down, and then you accordingly compare and you will finish it off. So now we go to the next question. A wire of resistance 4 ohm is stretched to twice its original length, then the resistance of the stretched wire will be. Again the same thing. Okay, again the same thing. The wire of 4 ohm is being stretched twice of its original length, then what is the resistance of the stretched wire? Just now we found that R prime is equal to N squared R it is, where R prime is the new resistance and how much it is being stretched? It is stretched 2 times, where the original resistance is 4. So R prime is equal to 16 ohm it is. So R prime is equal to 16 ohm it is, and that is our answer. You see, the previous question was the derivation and this question was its application. Same thing. So I don't have to explain much, but you have to understand that twice is nothing but that n what we are talking about. Because in the previous case it was given that it was stretched n times, right? Here it is particularly given to be 2. So I will be able to replace that. So now the next question is again a very simple question. It's a carbon resistance. I hope you people are familiar with the tabular column which is available for you in your textbook for the carbon resistance. I think you will be using a mnemonics to remember that. The mnemonics is nothing but B.B. Roy of Great Britain was a very good white scholar. So it starts from black and goes continuously goes. I think I don't have to explain it again. I think I will be directly going into the question. So the carbon resistance that is offered to us is nothing but capital R is equal to 47 plus or minus 4.7 ohms it is. 4.7 ohms it is. Actually 4.7 kilo ohms. So kilo means it is 10 power plus 3. So this is what is given to us, and there are various combinations of color that are provided to us in our options. So now 4. So we are going to start with 4. What does this 4 stands for? It stands for yellow. Okay. B.B. Roy, right? B.B.R.O.Y. Z. Okay, let me show it. B.B. Roy, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So yellow stands for 4. So since my resistance is starting with 4, I get to know that my option is going to be either in my B or in C. Either my B or C is going to be my answer. A and D is wrong. I get to know for sure. Then 7. So again I proceed. B.B. Roy of Great Britain. See, G already comes in. 5, 6, right? Okay, B.B. Roy of Great Britain. See, G stands for 6, but we have 7. So what I get to know is green will not be our answer. So this itself decides our answer, right? First will definitely be yellow. The second one will definitely be violet. Okay, that will definitely be violet. Then comes orange. How do I decide orange? How do I decide orange? Because 10 power plus 3. 10 power plus 3 is what your kilovolt is. So orange stands for 3. So that matches my K. Okay. So first let me proceed. This is yellow and this is your violet, and this kilovolt, this is represented by orange. Then how does this 4.7 comes? 4.7 is represented using the tolerance. Here the tolerance is silver. For silver it is 10%. What is the 10% means? That 10% is nothing but the 10% of this 47. What is the 10% of the 47? It is 4.7. That is the reason why you got 4.7 in here. So you have to realize that 4.7 is nothing but 10% of 47, and 10% is nothing but the tolerance for the silver band. See? So your option B is what is you get. So first I start from the first color. I realized that it was yellow. Immediately 2 of my option got eliminated. Then I went for the second digit and I realized that it is going to be violet. Immediately I can finalize my answer. but still I went further and I found the rest too. So this is how you do it. This is a very important question as far as the competitive exam and the board exams are concerned, because identifying a resistance through its color band is one of the most important technique when you go into a laboratory. So they always prefer testing you on this topic, right? Now the next question goes like, the voltage across a bulb rated 220 volt is 100 watt, drops by 2.5 percentage of its rated value, then what is the percentage of the rated value by which the power would decrease? It is going to be a tricky question. Okay, see, you have a bulb whose voltage and the power is represented, and they say that it is going to drop by 2.5 percentage. Then what is going to be dropped? Your voltage is going to get dropped by 2.5 percentage. Then how much amount of power is going to get decreased is what they are worrying about. So first let me proceed. P is equal to V squared by R. P is equal to V squared by R is what I will do first. Then I will cross multiply my R to find the resistance of my bulb, where V given is nothing but 220 the whole squared divided by 100. 220 the whole squared divided by 100. So on calculating this, I will get a resistance of 484 ohms. I will get a resistance of 484 ohms. Then what I will do is, I will find what is 2.5 percentage of 220 volt. See, voltage is nothing but, what do they say is, drops by 2.5 percentage. So you are dropping your voltage by 2.5 percentage. So already your existing voltage is 220 volt. It drops by 2.5 percentage. So I'll first find what is 2.5 percentage of 220 volt, and then I'll subtract that from my 220 volt. Got this? First I'll find what is 2.5 percentage in my 220 volt, and then I'll subtract it from 220 volt. So what my V is nothing but 214.5 voltage. It is nothing but 214.5 voltage. On calculating this, you will get 214.5. So now I will again use the same exact formula to find the power for this particular voltage. So P is equal to V squared by R. So I will square this first. Then the resistance for this particular bulb is nothing but 484 ohms. So this is the power that I get after reducing the voltage by 2.5 percentage. Then now what I will do is, I will find the percentage decrease. So to find the percentage decrease, it's very simple. Before that, I will calculate this. On calculating this, what I get is 95.06 watt is what I get. See, initially I had 100 watt, now it got reduced to 95.06 watt. So now what is the percentage drop in the power? Simple. Initial percentage minus the changed percentage divided by the initial percentage into 100 will give you the percentage change. So just by looking into this, I can get that 100 minus 95 is approximately 5. So the percentage decrease in your power is approximately 5%. It's approximately 5%. So this is how you solve it. So again, the first thing that you have to do is calculate the resistance of the bulb and then use that value to find the value of the power. Okay, the reduced power when your voltage is going to decrease by 2.5%. Okay, first find the reduced power and then take the difference between the initial and the reduced power and find the percentage. So this is how the things really work with this particular problem. So now we move to the next one. Fuse wire is a wire of. How do you think the fuse wire should be? Okay, how do you think the fuse wire should be? It's a very important and an interesting question, because we use our fuse wires in all the domestic purposes to maintain the safety in our home. Okay, so your fuse wire, what does it do? When an high voltage flows into your home, the fuse wire melts and disconnects the electric line from your domestic line. So it should have a low melting point. Only then it will be able to disconnect. Okay. Then if it has a low resistance, the power dissipation will also be low, so it will not generate enough heat to melt it. So it should have high resistance in order to have a high power dissipation, so that high power dissipation will produce huge amount of heat energy, which will obviously help the wire to melt. So option B should be correct. So this could be approached logically or technically, whatever it is. You should know first your fuse wire melts to disconnect the circuit. In the same way, for the fuse wire to melt, it has to get a huge amount of heat energy. That is only possible if the resistance is high. So that brings me to the second option. Now we move to the next one. See, this is a very interesting question. Here we have three devices. What is the device? It is a voltmeter, is what they say, and each voltmeter has its own resistance, where the voltmeter A has a resistance R, the voltmeter B has a resistance of 1.5, and the voltmeter C has a resistance of 3R respectively. When some potential difference is applied across X and Y, they are asking me to show what all these three voltmeters shows. Okay. Since each and every voltmeter is going to have a different resistance, the current flowing through each voltmeter will also be different. See, when I connect a battery across X and Y, the very first thing that you have to understand is, if two devices were connected in series, definitely the potential drops on them will not be same. But if the devices were connected in parallel, whatever the device may be, the potential drops on them will be the same. Okay, now listen, carefully listen. To find how the current is going to get distributed among them, what I need to find first is the overall resistance. So now I will try to find the equivalent resistance for this parallel combination, where 1 by R equivalent is equal to 1 by 3R. I will write 2 here, because 1.5 can be written as 3 by 2. That is why I have written it as 3R by 2, plus 1 by 3R, which is equivalent to 1 by R it is. So R equivalent is equal to R. So for this particular parallel combination, the equivalent resistance is R, which is equal to A. So now listen very carefully. This resistance and this overall resistance are connected in series. So potential drop on this and this will be different. But fortunately, both the resistance are of same value. So definitely the potential drop on this and this will be the same. Okay. So potential drop on this combination and this combination will be the same, and since these two since in this combination both the components are connected in parallel, drop on C and drop on B will be equal. Drop on C and drop on B will be equal. Okay. So that what I can say is, all the 3 voltmeters will have same amount of potential drop, and the reading on both on all the 3 voltmeters will be the same. So this is what I understand from this. It's a very simple calculation that we do. First you need to find the equivalent resistance, and then I realized that it is going to be the same as that of A. Since it is going to be equal, the potential drop on them is also equal, and all the 3 voltmeters are going to read the same. So this is how the problems in the current and electricity are dealt, and which is also a very important chapter to study. So with this note, I will come to an end of the session. We will again meet in the next session. Thank you.